Well, we've got a quiet opportunity while the shop is not being used right now to take a look inside of the Pennsylvania sawmill barn. It's an 1800's era bank barn that's built in Spring Mills, Pennsylvania. And you're welcome to come visit it. We love visitors to come through and see what we're about. But I wanted to take a look and just show some of the similarities between this and the brand new modern, but still very much based in the history of this type of barn, the new barn that we're building for the Pittsburgh barn. So one of the first things that we'll look at is the structure that you won't see under the floor. This barn is built in a bent system, and the bent system we'll explain in a second, but if you were to look underneath this flooring, this is 2 or 3 inch thick flooring that runs through and creates the structure where we can rest some of our woodworking beams, we can rest our equipment on. We've tried to place the equipment so that it's over the more structural components that are underneath. But underneath this floor system is a series of floor girts, or floor girders rather, that run from one end all the way to the other end. And if we look in the basement, you'll see that they're supported by posts that come up from the foundation. And so those are running the length of the building, and they're running parallel to the long dimension of our foundation. And that's the first level of structure that we have underneath there. And what you'll see underneath these, before we talk about the bents, is that on top of those perpendicular, you'll see a beam that runs through here, and that's a floor beam. And that floor beam, everywhere one of those rests, we'll see that there is a bent that runs through here. So a bent essentially is, if you were to take a slice of the barn, and bents can be shown on a grid. If you were to take it and place out where the posts go, you would look at this barn and say we've got post number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's 5 posts, and also in each of those posts as they're connected, there's a whole piece of a structure that connects it, and that's a bent. You can see how the knee braces, the posts, the top beams, everything else that supports it, all that goes together, and that unit or slice, if you were to take a transection of it, is called a bent. And so for our barn, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we have a 5 and 5 grid. If you were to put that onto a piece of paper and label it out, you'd have A, B, C, and D, and then you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the posts. So you can identify what happens at each one of the posts and know what has to happen at each of those. So as you look at that, you'll see these floor beams are part and parcel to the bents themselves. There's actually a tenon that runs down through into the floor beam and keeps those in place and locks the bottom of the base from moving. And then you'll see a few more of the structural things as we go through. Look at the roof. We'll also look at this sidewall here. You can see, especially on the ends here, how these posts will run up and then push to the outside. We've got wall girders that run through, and they're pushed to the outside so that it can receive our board and batten siding. It's a 1x, this is either hemlock or pine or a combination of both on this barn because it's been replaced over the years. But you'll see that these wall girders run through, and they're connected with a mortise and tenon connection that, as you can kind of see up here, are pegged in place. And those pegs were driven through with wood pegs that are still holding up. And then up above, you'll see knee braces that run at a 45-degree angle, and those connect from your posts to your beams and help control the building from any lateral racking. So as the wind blows against it, the pressure is applied to those knee braces. It helps resist the force of those things moving. It helps keep our barn from shimmying apart. So then, again, long ways together, you'll see real long beams that run through because of the age of this barn. Some of the timber that's available in it at the lengths that they were available in is not necessarily as readily available today. Sometimes you'll see in a modern barn seams that happen over the posts. In this barn, it is very hard to find the seams because, and again, it's a pretty old one, and there's some pretty large antique beams that are in there. So then the last thing to kind of look at here is up above these side beams that run through, you'll see rafters, and those rafters run up to intermittent supports that also support the rafters underneath it. Got to get a sense of it up here. As you look through, the rafters are running this way perpendicular to the roof line. There's a very lightweight purlin that goes there that supports the metal roof that was on here. And you kind of get a sense of it from here as to how that all falls together. So in our Pittsburgh barn, one of the things that's different is we have a 4x4 system. So we have 4 bents and we have 4 bents and 4 bays essentially to work with. And in each of our Pittsburgh barn bends, we'll take a post and we'll run that post directly up to the ceiling line. So the load is transferred laterally right down to the foundation. In this barn, it's a little bit offset. We just did it with a touch more efficiency from an engineering standpoint in today's part. So again, even on the inside, you can see that there are knee braces that help control the lateral racking. One of the things that's going to give this barn its strength is putting on that board and batten siding so the wind forces really can't rip through here and get a hold of it. And so once that barn is enclosed, it creates a little bit more strength to it. Every piece that goes up in this barn essentially adds to the layer of strength, so you're compounding and creating a stronger structure with every level that goes up with it. And again, this is a bank barn, meaning-wise, and we'll see that on the outside, that this last piece of the barn, this was an old dairy barn. This last section of the barn actually overhangs down below and cantilevers out underneath the floor system and creates a little bit of shelter. In the days where this would have been a dairy barn, it gave some shelter for the lower bays that were used for dairy cattle underneath it. And then in ours, we've got the main doors that are here. In the Pittsburgh barn, if you were to come through in ours, there would be a loft in this section that's raised up above for some storage. And then we've, again, built another layer of structure underneath that piece. But in this part, it's open because, again, this barn has been changed a little bit over the years, and we've adapted it to our purposes so that we can put things like the straight liner and the planer and the bandsaw and some of the other big elements and the band sander and things like that through it. So just a little overview and a tour of our structure. It's you'll certainly always see parallels between historic barns as they're built, and our modern barn is certainly no different. It is based in a lot of the history of many barns that happened before it, and hasn't quite yet been modified the way that this one has been for our purposes. So a little bit of a look, and we'll take a look outside next at our Pennsylvania sawmill barn.